I'm Brian Burke.
And we're going to talk today about what happened to the October Visa Bulletin of year 2022. We will remember that year for quite some time for a massive retrogression when we were expecting a generous moving forward. Please stay with us. We'll be back in a second. This is Attorney Sam Shihab and my dear colleague Brian Burke. We are from the law firm of Sam Shihab and Associates, and we practice employment and immigration law every Monday at 6 o'clock. We get together and we talk about a pressing employment-based immigration matter that the community is concerned about, or we discuss a substantive topic to share information, and we try to answer as many of the questions as possible. Obviously, we've spent a significant amount of time building up to the October Visa Bulletin, and all of us were shocked to hear some word first and then confirmed by the publishing of the Visa Bulletin that it has retrogressed 900 plus days, and the EB3 moved forward, which is another puzzling piece that we're trying to figure out today.
Yeah.
And they both landed on July 1st, 2012. So everybody, I got emails from people. I'm devastated. I am so disappointed. My child is aging out. What went wrong? So we're trying to figure these things out here today. And maybe we start by confirming one thing about the law, which the obligation of the State Department with regards to coming out with a visa bulletin prediction, and maybe we can throw that on the screen, Brian, if you can explain that to us.
So the rule of thumb is any prediction on the Visa Bulletin of visa availability, even from the Department of State, is to be taken with a grain of salt, because this is what the law reads on the allocation of visas. For the purposes of carrying out the Secretary's responsibilities in the orderly administration of this section, this is, issuance of visas, the Secretary of State shall make reasonable estimates of the anticipated numbers of visas to be issued during any quarter of any fiscal year within each of the categories under subsections A, B, and C, and to rely upon such estimates in authorizing the issuance of visas.
Translation.
It's a guess. It's an estimate. One word I take away from there, Sam, is estimate.
Yeah. So basically, the State Department by law is not required to calculate numbers to a highest level of precision.
Yeah.
Just make two things, by the way, not an estimate, a reasonable estimate. So they have to just guess what is the number and then go from there.
Yeah.
And this year,
I would say that the retrogression is the result of a bad guess. Of an inaccurate, at one year or another. It's basically, we guessed there'd be less demand, and meaning more demand than we got, we have to move the
last year?
Yeah, back the dates accordingly.
It could be a bad guess. Obviously, every retrogression is an outcome of a bad guess.
Yeah.
That there's no question there. To me, I don't have a problem with the final action date on an initial basis. I have a problem with the dates for filing.
Yeah.
Because, we all start at the beginning of the year. Maybe it's a good idea to go through the numbers. I'm not sure what's the sequence here, Brian.
Let's just start talking about the news. We're going to be talking about all of the data points that are sort of floating around about the end of this fiscal year and the new fiscal year. Let's hit the data points right up front.
I'm going to start with the conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with the conclusion. The conclusion that we stand behind, we felt before, and we went back and carefully looked at everything, that there is very likely the same amount of visa numbers in fiscal year 2023 as was last year for EB to India. Obviously, the documents in that court case, it's floating all over the community, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. It publishes numbers of the estimated annual limit for EB to India, 60,000.
60,000.
and with an asterisk that this is
Not quite final yet.
yes. And if you recall the prior court filing in the same case, the estimated number was 51,000.
Yeah.
And then they moved the number to 60,000. And I won't be surprised that the estimated number or the actual number
little bit higher.
will be higher than 60,000
Yeah.
by the end of the year.
Yeah. So when I was looking at those numbers, Sam, what they also say in that court case is what the EB2 India inventory will be at the end of this fiscal year, which is about 39,000.
Yes.
Right.
And it is not rocket science. Yeah. It is not rocket science. For me, without even going into all the details we will go through, we got 200,000 with the estimated spillover of 60,000. We have 200,000 green cards to hand out next year. 200,000. Okay, that's a number is not in dispute. It looks like there's a consensus. Even the government told us that, right?
Yeah, they actually updated. They said they're looking at 60,000 in spillover.
Yeah.
Great.
And there is 40,000 EB2s not adjudicated.
Yep.
And 25,000 EB3s not adjudicated. Okay, so what's that? 65.
Yeah, about 65,000.
65,000. What about the remaining green cards of 135,000?
Yeah, the usual part of the usual allocation. Yeah.
If you look at every year's use of the green cards of other than China and India, because that's really the number that you have to subtract first, it's about 40 or 50,000 in the EB1, EB2, and EB3. We're not talking about EB4, EB5. These numbers, the EB1, EB2, and EB3, if you look at every year and you take out, you remove China and India because these are the backlog categories except for EB1. You don't have to do that. And disregard the EB4 and EB5, you're looking at 50,000 green cards. Yeah. Okay.
Where do the rest
of the 135,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where do the rest go?
Now, where that leaves us with the math, 80,000 green cards.
Yeah.
80,000 green cards. Where the 80,000 green cards are going for fiscal year 2023. And that confirms, that's simple math. It's not complicated. It's really simple stuff.
I mean, Sam, I'm going to make it even simpler. We know the USCIS says they have 40,000 EB2 cases in their hands at the end of this year with don't have visas available. There's an allocation in EB2 India of 60,000 last year, right? Fiscal year 2022. So if you assume a similar allocation this year, that's enough to totally eliminate the backlog there, which means there has to be some forward movement on EB2 this fiscal year.
Not a backward movement.
Yes. Let alone a backward movement of about two and a half years.
Yes.
Which is, I guess, the other perplexing thing about the Visa Bulletin. Sam, let's talk about what exactly happened on the Visa Bulletin. So, first of all, USCIS did announce that as of September 6th, they had gone through their EB1 and EB2 allocations for fiscal year 2022. Meaning, even if you have a current priority date per the current Visa Bulletin, you shouldn't expect your green card to be approved at this point. And that's the real kind of bummer news. They're out of visas in those categories, and EB3 is likely to be soon resolved as well. On the Visa Bulletin itself, though, here's the EB2 retrogressed, from final action dates from 12/1/2014 to 4/1/2012. So that's about 2.5 years, right? Filing dates went back, a similar amount of time. Whereas EB3, Sam, moved forward. EB3 moved forward from final action date from 2/15/2012 to 4/1/2012, a couple of months, and a similar movement on the EB3 filing dates.
Yet there is 25,000 green cards in the inventory, and very low numbers of EB3 to move forward.
Well, yes. I mean, so last year, USCIS in this court case, they said at the end of the fiscal year, they're going to have 24,000 EB3 cases in their inventory. That same document says the yearly allocation for EB3 India was 12,700. Yes. So if assuming a similar allocation this year, you're going to make it through half that backlog. Yeah. But somehow that results in
A forward movement.
A forward movement where you probably can't make it through that backlog. Whereas the EB2, where you clearly can make it through the backlog, it seems like you can. Retrogression of 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It makes not a lick of sense.
So clearly there is a combination of reasonable estimate, okay,
Yeah.
and policy
Yeah.
movement. Now remember, the people at the State Department that are making decisions on the Visa Bulletin are not the same people we have dealt with for decades. These are new people with new way of looking at what is reasonable estimate may be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the last, for those who have been watching us for a while, we were always showing clips of Charles Oppenheim from the Department of State, who was the Visa Bulletin guru, the Visa Bulletin master. He's been replaced with somebody else, and there's somebody else new at the helm. I got to mention, you mentioned policy on these dates. I think one of the things we talked about previously was these dates are synced up, the EB2 and EB3.
Magically.
Dates for filing and final action dates. Magically, Sam, I'm gonna take the more mathematical approach. It seems just statistically unlikely that both categories can be stuck at the exact same dates.
The chances of that happening is probably equal the chances of me winning the lottery tomorrow, which is 0%, because I don't play the lottery.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, I mean, the final action dates being both synced up exactly on 4/1/2012 doesn't really make much.
And that's the policy piece.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, they wanted to make sure that there is no interfiling.
Yeah, well, there's no new filing. Not only no interfiling.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no new interfiling.
I mean, they don't want
shifting back and forth between the categories.
But there's no interfiling if there's both of them retrogressed. I mean, who's going to interfile with the priority date 2011?
Well, it's not just interfiling, Sam. We talked. There's there's going to be very little new filings at all because
these are old.
These are old dates. The dates have been here forever. They were just last month. They were well beyond well beyond this.
Yes.
And even EB3 was filing dates so they're not getting new cases, Sam. I guess it's the bottom line for USCIS.
Yes.
Which kind of makes me want to segue just a little bit to the subject of the final action dates. The final action dates, they're supposed to be an outlook of, this is per Charles Oppenheim, what he said, the old guard, the guy who left the Department of State, they're supposed to be a future outlook, where the final action dates are going to be in 8 to 12 months. And, they're pretty darn close together. And everything we see, Sam, says that there must be some Visa Bulletin movement forward beyond where we're at right now, because once they clear out their inventory, they have to start moving the dates forward.
So there is an explanation.
Yeah.
Why I cannot explain the EB3 moving forward. I cannot explain it.
I have one theory on it. Maybe they think that all these EB3 cases are a bunch of baloney. Everybody in that category is capable and is intending to move to EB2. So maybe they're moving EB3, anticipating those people moving out of the EB3 category into the EB2 category.
So you have to conclude is that 90% of the 25,000 inventory of EB3 may be
EB2.
interfileable to EB2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only possible.
They could also be concluding.
If it's not logical.
These 24,000 cases, they could also be saying, no, these are all duplicative cases. These people already are dual filings in EB. So yeah, one way or another, they're in fact not going to be charged in the EB3 category.
Okay. So we are still. I went in and we plugged in some numbers and we talked about the calculations. And I think to simplify the numbers for everybody, this is not voodoo. This is math, and it's not fuzzy math. This is straightforward math, and it's simple math. It's not. There's really two things only, maybe three things that control the numbers. One is spillover number. That's number one.
Yeah. How much of the pie any country gets is dependent upon how big the pie is.
Yeah.
Well, it's always the same amount of. Yeah.
What kind of pie? Apple pie?
I don't really like apple pie. I think I'm more for a custard pie, Sam. That's my kind of pie. I don't like fruit pies.
Okay, good. So that makes that you and I get along perfect because I'm going to eat all the apple pie. You can eat all the custard pie.
You can have it, Sam. It's all too sweet. Just give me an apple by itself.
So you got the spillover.
Yeah.
they get the spillover. How many cases coming from family to employment?
Yeah.
That's the first number.
Yeah.
Simple. Okay? The government tells us what this number is. The government told us what this number is. 60,000 for next year, approximately. The second number, really simple. How many green cards the rest of the world has to process for 2023?
Yeah.
No one knows this number until the end of the fiscal year 2023.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But we can have reasonable estimates based on I-140 approvals.
Yeah.
Okay, we can have reasonable estimate. You know, if we come out with a 50,000 number, it's not going to be 120,000.
Yeah.
It could be 40,000. It could be 35. It could be 65. You know, give or take.
Yeah.
You know, within 25,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's a big wide.
Yeah, that number matters because, you know, anytime somebody who's not, you know, part of the India or China backlog, anytime, you know, somebody with a current priority date and everywhere else in the world has a priority date, every time they say, hey, I'd like a visa this year, that's one less available for somebody from India or China.
Right,
Yeah.
because of the fall across and the fall down. The fall across is when all the visas are used up for all other countries. You fall across, you see if there's anybody else backlogged in that category.
Yeah, the most backlogged being EB2 India.
Yes, and then you do the fall across, EB1, and then whatever is left over, it falls down. And then the fall across, EB2, and then you go to the most backlogged, which is everything ends up in the EB1 and the EB2 unused, really ends up in India EB2.
Because it is the most backlogged category. Yeah.
Yes. And the third number is the inventory.
Yeah.
The third number, how much the government has that wasn't able to get to because they ran out of visas.
Yeah.
Those are the three numbers.
Yeah.
The third number, they gave it to us substantially. The first number we know. The second number we can estimate with reasonable enough. And based on what we see, we honestly believe that in fiscal year 2023, it may exceed the allocation of green cards for India,
and
EB2.
So again, for fiscal year 2022, USCIS said in this court filing that, hey, we are giving approximately 60,000 visas to India EB2.
Yes.
And you know, this year, in fiscal year 2023, we believe it can be greater. And there seems to be, for a moment, if you think about it, a logical disconnect, because in this fiscal year, there are 281,000 green cards available. That's what they said back in last October. And this fiscal year, we know there's going to be less, because there's only a rollover of 60,000. So that's 281,000 last year versus about 200,000 that's going to be available in the fiscal year 2023. Yeah. And we were talking about how is it possible that India, despite there being less visas, we think it's possible that India EB2 might get more.
Yes, might get equal or more. And the reason being is that not only did USCIS clear the warehouses with approving a massive number of India green card, but they also cleared all the other countries. So there isn't a whole lot of other countries to approve leftover.
And I think the other country demand could have been artificially high in fiscal year 2022 because they wasted 60,000 visas in the prior fiscal year.
Yeah. So they've cleared. So there is more to go to India than in fiscal year 2023 than 2022 because there's less other world green cards to issue.
They got those people green cards in their hands.
Yes.
So they're not.
So but there is an explanation as to why we have this retrogression, possibly. So if you can throw in that spreadsheet, and we're going to go in and out of it, and if there's time, we'll explain some of it. So if you go,
let's put it up live here on.
Let me before we do that, let me scroll into the area where it's relevant. So what we're going to talk about here, if you can zoom out a little bit, Brian.
Well, I'm going to put it up there, and we will, and then I'll start to manipulate it for us to make it all easy to read.
Yeah. So right here, go back a little bit more. Yeah, zoom out. I'm sorry, Brian.
Sorry, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One more zoom out. Okay, that's fine. That's perfect.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to talk about. Whoops, we're going to talk about a little bit. So in this iteration, we came out with a 71,000 potential EB2 India.
That's your estimation for how many EB in the coming fiscal year 2023, how many India EB2 green cards there will be? A total of 71,119?
We estimate that. I mean, there's some assumption we build in, and we'll give you the assumption here in a second. But I'm trying to kind of highlight a point of why we got potentially retrogression. If you look at this 4,000 visa, that number is simply a multiplication of 200,000 green cards times 28.6% times 0.07, which is the maximum allocation of green cards based on the spillover plus the 140,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get 4,000 green cards.
That's what India 2 is. EB2. India EB2 is sort of guaranteed as a minimum.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you don't get the fall across or the fall down until they start seeing visas of other world, what the other world is doing in terms of visas.
Because in their mind, it's logically, well, if 80,000 people immigrate here from the United Kingdom, they're current. They get all eaten up, or not just in one country, but if suddenly immigration from all these other countries goes up, those visas won't be available to spill across to India, and we can't start considering spill across immediately because we got to give those other countries a chance to get those visas.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the fall across and the fall down per regulation is done quarterly.
Yeah.
You do it every quarter. So this new administration at the State Department, they said, we're going to start doing it the right way. We got 4,000 green cards. I got a demand of 40,000.
Yeah, that's going to take a long time to cover that. Yeah.
There's no way. So by law, they must go to the priority date of the case 4005, and that priority date is going to be the published priority date. Now, they make adjustments, because that's an oversimplification. They make an adjustment based on a multiplier of family members and a multiplier of denial. So it's not going to be the 4,005th case. It will be a number case that they will choose after they make the adjustment. They're going to say, okay, that case is the cutoff case. And they publish that date.
Being in 2012.
Yes. Now,
well, I got to say, that's going to drive some people mad, because raise your hand out there if you have a friend or colleague or jerk who's just dangling it over your head who got a green card with, a 2013 or 2014 priority date from India EB3, whereas I know there's people out there with mid to late 2012 priority dates still waiting.
2011.
Yeah.
2011.
Yeah, still waiting for green cards. I mean, it's to say, they're supposed to do it in a first in, first out order, but practically speaking, it's obvious to everybody that they don't.
Yes. So they did that. Now, based on our projection and assumptions, the first quarter is going to give you an additional 16,700 green cards.
So that's January.
That's going to be January of 2023.
Yeah.
That's still not going to be enough to handle the 39,000 cases. Of course, the 39,000.
That's the EB. So basically, you're saying in January if this holds true, there's a new dump of 16,000 estimated visas, but that won't totally eliminate the backlog of 39,000, right?
That's published by the government.
Yeah.
The government told us that they have in their warehouses 40,000 green cards in the EB2 that they haven't touched. Now, they haven't talked about duplication. They haven't talked about denials, but that 40,000 will go down, we assume, by about 10,000.
Yeah,
but we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, but by the first quarter, you're not going to see the numbers getting to that.
Because by January, that means that they'll have let out about 20,000 visas, and that won't knock out a 40,000 backlog.
Exactly.
However, once you get to, once you're in April, you have another 6.
Yeah. Then you're going to see movement in the final action. You're going to have to see movement. Now, again, we'll talk about the assumptions and the numbers in a second. You're going to see movement in April of the Visa Bulletin.
Well,
that's final action date.
That's about equivalent, because that's 20 plus 36,000. That's about equivalent to the backlog.
But I'm assuming there's going to be duplication and denials.
Yeah.
So there's going to be modest movement.
A little bit of movement. I'll give you that.
But not from 2012.
Yeah.
It's from December 2014. It's going to have to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming now
there's very few cases out there from,
Yes.
that haven't been filed yet for 2013, 2014 priority dates, let alone the second half of 2012. And then when you get into July, then
then you're going to start seeing significant movement.
significant movement.
Yeah.
Now, great.
Now, the dates for filing, however, it should move. In
That's what drives me mad about this, Sam. So if that's how they're doing it, and this seems reasonably logical, shouldn't they be moving? The problem is they're not taking any new cases right now because people who have been eligible to file largely have filed their I-45 applications. And if they have to, in order to allocate these visas, assuming that they have to get those cases in their offices. And they're effectively saying, at least for the month of October, hey man, we're not taking anything new. Which means, in this fiscal year, Sam, they have to approve 200,000 green cards. And now they've given themselves 11 months to approve those new green cards.
Yes, and there's going to be chaos of filing cases at a certain point, maybe mid-year or something. I don't know.
The point is, the Visa Bulletin has to give way at some point. And I worry if they don't start taking cases sooner or later by moving the dates for filing, when are they going to have time to approve these before the end of the fiscal year and not wait? I'm desperately worried that they're setting themselves up for another year of wastage, which would drive me mad.
Yes, and for these people that want to talk about EB3, if you can put that screen again.
Yeah, sure.
Magically, our guesstimate is very close to what the government came out. We're a little bit higher also on the EB3. The total we're seeing is potentially 19,000 cases.
Yeah. 19,000. So that right here, there it is, 19,000 visas available for the year.
Yes.
And here's how they might theoretically get spread out across the year.
Yes.
3,300 in October and an additional 4,000 each quarter.
And the 3,300 in October, by the way, that number is a little bit lower because we backed out other countries, which has about less numbers. So this is EB3 is three categories: professionals, and skilled
workers,
and then unskilled.
Yeah.
So there's some number that's backed out. So anyways, but we don't see any reason for early movement in the EB3.
Yet it does.
Yeah.
And that's when I want to go back to our slide, Sam, about about what is the Visa Bulletin. It is a reasonable estimate.
Yeah, it absolutely is a reasonable estimate. Now, it may be helpful to talk about our assumptions. So what we talked about, everybody here, the three assumption is spillover number, the rest of the world, how much of the rest of the world is going to be we're going to process during 2023, and then the third one is inventory, how much in the warehouses, government warehouses. Those are the three numbers. You have these numbers, you have 100% precise numbers, and we don't have all these numbers. So what we don't have is the second number, which is how much the rest of the world going to process in 2023. The government doesn't know that, but here's what we've done in trying to estimate that. And I think what we've done, in my opinion, is very reasonable. If you go back to the screen here, what we've done in our projection is we did this 1.5 number, and I apologize if you're watching it on your mobile device, you may not see it. The 1.5 is a multiplier. So this is basically, these numbers is a year and a half worth of the rest of the world. And I think there is not a year and a half worth the rest of the world. I think that's a very conservative number.
They were approving green cards like madmen, so there shouldn't be that much demand out there for the rest of the world.
Yes, so by way of example, I'm going to look at my sheet here. By way of example, EB1 was approved in 2021. 12,000 green cards were approved in EB I-140s in 2021 for the whole year. We assume they're going to process 19,000 green cards in EB1. If you back out all the world, all EB2 approvals minus the world, you're going to find that the EB2 is only 20,000 for the rest of the world. Well, if you can. And we put in 20,000 there. EB3 we put in 24,000, and that will give you the projection of 71,000. If in fact, if you go with a more conservative numbers, which is a 1 multiplier, the number of green cards available for India could be a lot higher.
Yeah, we were kind of floating, or what I believe it was around 80,000 something. It's 80,000 and some change.
Yes.
So there is the bottom line is because India, the backlog on EB2 gets the benefit of flow down and flow across, right? Meaning a bunch of visas are going to go into EB2 India, enough that it seems that it will eliminate everything that is in the USCIS inventory of EB2 India cases, and that's that.
Yes.
It's got to move. So the visa bulletin has to give some time.
Those who have an approved filed adjustment of status, Brian.
So
what should we expect? What do they have? What rights do they have?
Well, if you have a pending adjustment of status, my condolences for one thing. Obviously, there are so many people hoping to see their cases approved during this fiscal year. But if you have an approved adjustment of status, a pending adjustment of status, your adjustment of status is still pending. Retrogression stinks, but you're still allowed to file for EADs and APs indefinitely as long as your case is pending. And USCIS will get to your case when a visa is still available. The visa bulletin says, the current priority date is in the middle of 2012, for EB2 and EB3. If you still have a priority date that is before then, you can expect your case to be approved, not the month of September, but they're capable of approving your case in October,
And beyond this year, beyond this spillover and beyond this year, I think things are not going to look very good going forward in terms of positive movement unless there's a change in the law.
Well, yes. I mean, the bottom line, Sam, is all of these crazy numbers of massive amounts of employment-based green card availability have been driven by slow activity at the consulates abroad due to COVID. 140,000 unused that rolled over to this fiscal year. And it was only 60,000 that are rolling into the next fiscal year. So that means the Department of State is doing a better job of issuing family preference visas abroad, which is good for those folks, of course, but that means less rollover into employment-based categories, and it means less movement in future fiscal years for...
So 2 years ago, they moved, by the way, the movement, if you look at the last 2 years, even with the spillover, there was not an aggressive forward movement in the final action date.
Yeah.
It was modest at best, but there was obviously aggressive movement in the dates for filing to get those cases in. And obviously, one of the biggest criticism is that dates for filing for EB3 was moved so much
to draw people in with duplicate I-140 filing. That's what they really needed, Sam. More I-140 filings to even bog them down even further. I-140s that have proved to be ultimately unnecessary because everybody is getting their green cards in EB2 anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but a retrogression at this massive scale I think is probably carrying out the regulations to it's like strict interpretation of it.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me so much. There's somebody new at the helm. This is this person's first year because at the end of last fiscal year it was when Charles Oppenheim was retiring, and he said, and one of my last duties is to make sure that the final visa bulletin, the October Visa Bulletin goes smooth. I'm going to basically have my finger on the pulse of that one as I go out.
Yes.
So
I mean, to summarize our point, the number of the rest of the world will be lower because they have approved most of it. They've cleaned the docket on that.
That's what appears, yeah.
Yes, and the spillover together should give us a positive year. Unfortunately, it's a rough start for everybody. So that's we feel strongly about that. We are not in the prediction business, but we are in the business of asking logical questions and demanding logical answers. And right now, this retrogression doesn't add up except for saying, okay, so you said, I do not know what the fall across is, I do not know what the fall down is, and therefore I'm just going to go very conservative at the beginning. I got 40,000 green cards to process here. I'm going to shut it down, figure things out, and then we'll deal with it later.
Yeah. Bottom line is, but that's where they are right now. But the visas seem to be there to clear out the backlog, and once the backlog's cleared, you can move the final action dates forward. But again, what's driving me red right now, Sam, this is my last time I'll mention the subject, is if they're going to be moving the dates for the final action dates forward, they have to move the dates for filing forward so they can get those cases in their hands and give them sufficient time to process them, because I know plenty of people who have had, green card I-45 applications pending for almost 2 years at this point,
Yes.
and they don't get to them fast, and thereby
Yes.
leaving them taking new cases with during fiscal, having to issue those visas and having 6, 7, 8 months to process them. I'm not optimistic. That's what worries me.
So we may be in a situation there might be wastage, and if there's wastage, obviously everything's out the window, what we're talking about, because that's going to be horrible. I'm hoping this administration has been very sensitive about immigration.
They have turned up the activity. I mean, I pat them on the head. I say good job for using them all this year. But again, that's essentially, these are cases that took them 2 years to get approved.
I mean, this system is not sustainable. Let's face it. Number one, I mean, there's the realities on the ground here that calls for a change in the way we do business. And I don't think there is a disagreement in Congress between the Democrats and the Republicans. They're just basically, they just hate each other so much that even if there's something they agree on, they say, "Oh,
well, we're going to attach it to all.
We're going to disagree.
Yeah.
We're going to disagree because we hate each other." First of all, this country, we are a shrinking country now. We have joined the European countries of shrinking population. We do not produce enough children for our population to grow. We must have more immigration if our population is to grow. That's number one. That's now well documented by the Census Bureau. Number two, we have lost so much talent in the last 5-6 years because of the policies and the politics that we're so much behind with technology that we're not able.
Yeah, it's not something we've talked about, but we every now and again, Sam, we've done sort of like a roundtable discussion here of like, hey, here's what immigration policies are in other countries, and they're better than ours. It used to be, the spouses are pretty much guaranteed to be able to work, and your wait for permanent residence is
a lot shorter.
Is a lot. I mean, Canada's right next door, and we've lost a lot of people to Canada because it's easy.
And our population is aging population. Especially with this pandemic that wiped out a bunch of people. And at the same time, a lot of people have retired early because they really don't want to deal with this anymore. So we've lost a lot of top talent, top knowledge, people with knowledge and experience and expertise. That's gone. So shrinking population, a pandemic that killed people, and aging population calls for a change in policy.
Well, yeah, bottom line then, Sam, where does that change? It's legislative change.
It's going to have to. Well, I mean, on the change, what are the changes that we think will be helpful?
Well, the one which is just tantalizing to me, it's basically change the way you count people's against the green card allocation. It's don't count dependents. If you only count the primary person, suddenly those visa numbers gets a far goes
and
a
that
far
can
way.
be done administratively, by the way. I mean, USCIS can basically say, you know what, we're just updating I don't think Congress have prohibited that. I think this is something that the administration can do on their own. But you need somebody with guts to come out and say, we're going to change the policy and this is how we're going to do it. So that's one thing that can happen. Secondly, people talk about wiping out the per country limitation, but that per country limitation is not really restricting.
Yeah, as we've already kind of gone through here, most of the visas, 60,000 last year going to India. It goes where the backlogs are, and that's the way the law works.
Clearly, this is sounds like a broken record. Recapture the lost green cards. This is you should not allow the agencies to go against the wish of Congress. You got to recapture those green cards.
That's the one that drives me mad. You want to know what happened to the Visa Bulletin? Look at the beginning of the end of last fiscal year.
Yeah.
They lost 60,000 green cards. That's devastating. That's people's lives put on.
And I'm going to add one to my list of changes, which is you should not be allowed to retrogress. You move forward to that date, you stop. If you're not able to, this is the furthest we were able to get, take the adjustment, don't issue the green cards, don't issue the visas, but allow people, It's just the fact of this back movement, it creates such a level of uncertainty, frustration that's unnecessary.
I know people right now who are involved in consular processing of their employment-based green cards, and now they're going, well, what the hell does that mean? Am I not coming to the United States right now,
Yeah. So those are the changes that we have to do, and obviously you can renew your EADs indefinitely. You explained that.
Yeah.
And your advanced parole, you get an advanced parole. You can continue with your H-1Bs. So those are things that you can certainly do that can help you out. That's what we wanted to say. Let's take questions. I know there's a few questions out there. We're not going to be able to take all of them, but we're going to take some of them. And let's dive in.
Okay. We'll be back in a second. Hey,
Yes.
we cannot put up that midpoint video. There it is.
All right, Brian. So I guess we are the positive outlook here, but we really believe in these numbers. We really believe what we say. So let's take Krishna's question.
Yeah, let's see what we get. So last week I received my new Social Security number with name matching I-485 and passport, middle name, first name, last name. Name of my Social Security was first name, last name only. Will this be an issue?
Short answer is no. Is it bothering you too much? Go back to the Social Security Administration, and they can probably answer your question. I don't see it.
I mean, for me, your issue is as good as the person you show it to. If you start completing I-9 and somebody goes nuts on you and saying, "Oh, these documents don't match up," you might have a problem. You need to get fixed.
As we know that spillover is 60,000 and total is 200,000. How does the spillover actually happen? Does the 60,000 also comes under the 28.6, and by 7? How can we be sure that all the 60K
and it continues here? If not, most of them goes to EB2. If all goes to EB2, dates for filing will move to 15th of April 2015.
Yes.
So basically, not all of the spillover goes into India EB2 because there are other demand elsewhere, right?
Yes. So to outline, basically what you have is you take the 60,000 spillover, you add it to the 200,000, to 140,000. Available green card, you get 200,000. You allocate these by 28.6% per category, and we're not going to talk about EB3, EB4. And
for me, it's pretty simple. EB1 gets green cards, and if there is that's EB1 will take what they get, but there's not that much demand in EB1. It's relatively little. If you look at the I-140 filings, EB1 I-140s are very rare compared to EB2s, meaning
12,000 per year, 12 to 15,000 per year.
Meaning,
and you get an allocation this year of 57,000.
Yeah, meaning a little bit of that was going to go to a little of the extra availability is going to go to EB1, but EB1 doesn't take them all. And where does it go? It rolls down to EB2. And where's the biggest backlog in EB2? India. Yes. So most of them are, most of them are going to go there.
The part of the spillover that does not go. So what goes to India is 28.6 to the EB1 that makes itself into EB2 from fall down, and then the 28.6 going to EB2 also ends up in EB2 after allocating to other countries. But what EB2 India does not get from the spillover is the EB3 28.6 does not go there, and the 10% EB4 and the 10% EB5, these do not go to EB2 India, but just to precisely answer your question.
Yeah, anything that doesn't get used by EB1 or EB2, everybody else goes into the oldest backlog category, which is,
yes.
There you go.
All right, excellent. So, Siva.
So I-45 EB2 priority date 1/2014, a medical RFE response delivered on 9/2, but was updated as received at 9/6 at USCIS. Do I still have a chance to get green card as I'm hearing all visas used up for September? So that's only, that knowledge is really with the officer that does it. But I've had them talk. You've been to plenty of interviews too. I've had them say to me, in interviews fairly recently, saying, when I make the decision to approve this case, I'm going to log into a government computer system, and that's when the visa will be allocated. And I've been told, it might be available now, but there are officers like me all across the country chomping them up at any given moment. So if the decision hasn't been, it's possible, but if the decision hasn't been made, it hasn't been made, and thereby it's unlikely.
It's at the end. I've been doing this for a few years. I remember.
You win, Sam, more than me,
I was a little bit more than Brian, but Brian has done a bunch. And I remember back in the days, they used to do it in front of us. So what they do is they're processing the case, and then they will just say, "Hold on a second." They'll walk out, talk to the supervisor for quick approval. But it used to be a lot more efficient. Get the approval, walk in, and then they turn to another computer, which is, you can tell it's a different system, okay? And then he punches in, and he, in front of you, claims the numbers.
Grabs one, yeah.
And then he writes down the number, he puts it in, he said, looks like your green card is approved now, congratulations. So we used to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, and then, so that's the thing. They really do it.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
All right. Hovering drone, will the December 2014 date will be current again? 60,000 spill should do the trick, I think. Common sense, I mean, again, I'm going to repeat here. The government is telling us they have, what?
39,000 in their inventory as of September 6th.
And 25 for EB3.
25 for EB3. And there you go. If we estimate,
there's 200,000 green cards.
Yeah.
200,000 green cards after you allocate these, and what's the rest of the world backlogged? 5,000?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be too much. The answer is we believe absolutely.
As we said earlier, we believe that sometime during the fiscal year they must move the dates in order to make.
And we anticipate that to be mid-year if they strictly.
If they're doing it like the way you've sort of projected out there. Yeah.
And again, what we've done here is we've allocated the world usage equally. So if the world usage was very slow at the beginning of the year, they will allocate more to India. If the world usage was very high at the beginning of the year, then they will allocate less to India. But we think by mid-year we should get back to seeing
backlog,
the same.
and if they need cases to use the visas, they have to start taking new cases, and that gets the priority. That gets the priority date up to about where it was before, because we know that anybody with a date prior to January 1st, 2015. EB2 has filed an I-45 at this point.
And we believe that we should. I mean, what you guys predicted when we talked is a 6 months forward movement. We think we may be able to see a 6 months.
I still think that can happen in this fiscal year.
So it should be mid 2015 is what we think will happen.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Dalmitel, I think there's a prior part of this question up there, and I'm gonna make that effort to go and find it. So my priority date is September 2015. Is there any possibility it will? Oops, here we are. It can be current this year, or should I change a job?
So
September 2015.
So never change a job because you attended our show.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we give us our opinion, and we really do not know the specifics of your case, the vulnerability of your case, the intricacies. The devil is in the details. So I can't answer that question in good faith. You need to talk to your attorney, and even your attorney probably, who is very intimate with your case, will not be able to answer.
Because nobody's going to tell you to make a change of job. That's kind of a personal decision for you. But if you have, here's what I will usually tell people, Sam. If you're eligible for portability, the portability rules are there, and people use them all the time, and they have successful green card cases. And I'm sure I have no doubt there's all sorts of great opportunities out there, and you're allowed to take advantage of the portability rules.
Sagar, if cases has been moved to field office, is there a chance in numbers assigned for this year? No. The assignment of the number normally occurs
when they know they can approve the case.
Yes. The only exception that happened in my recollection is in 2007 when there was a feud between the State Department and USCIS, and the State Department made everything current.
We need another one of those feuds.
Yes, they made everything current, and we started filing cases like it was indefinite number. So what they've done is they called officers at midnight to pull numbers to shut it down, and USCIS got sued for it, and they settled. And that we will never see that again. TA, my priority date is current. I filed EB2
National
interest waiver in April concurrently. I just got my EAD approved on Friday. Is there a possibility of getting an I-140 and I-145 approved this fiscal year? You filed in April. Well, it's all about processing time now.
Well, I mean, I'm not seeing an approved. I'm seeing the I-140s not approved. Right, and if the I-140 is not approved right now, they've said this fiscal year.
But he's saying it's current.
Yeah, but it's I-140.
2012.
But is I-1? Does he mean current on? I mean, I think he means current for this fiscal year.
I see. Not next year.
I don't know where this person's current in
We don't
October.
know. Yeah, you and I interpret it differently. Yeah. So not likely unless the I-140 is approved. I think regardless.
Yeah, definitely not impossible if your I-140 is not approved. That I-140 has to be approved before they can approve your I-45, and your priority date needs to be current for them to approve your I-45.
So what is the realistic expectation for EB1 spillover and EB2 rest of the world spillover to EB2 India in fiscal year 2023? All right, so we want to play numbers. Here's what we believe. We believe and we assume 19,000 EB1 cases, which is a lot more than many years.
Yeah, and that's assuming. Yeah, you just basically picked a number based upon a prior year, and you multiplied it by 1.5 just to be super conservative.
Yes, and we picked up basically 2021 year and multiplied by 1.5. We came out with 19,000, and based on that, there is 57,000 green cards allocated to EB1. 19,000 going to the rest of the world, which by the way includes India and China because they are current. So we see 38,000 green cards falling down to EB2 potentially throughout the year.
That's why previously we'll say that's where the spillover is. Most everything goes into EB because there's such little used in EB1.
And again, obviously that's not the rest of the story. The rest of the story is how much EB2 will be used by the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that's another number that we think that is going to be significant.
One of the things I think about when I think about the rest of the world, Sam, well, I think about people I know from India. So many of them come to the United States to get a graduate degree, which means a lot of them do end up in EB2. So but so many people, because from other areas in the world, because they're current in the EB3 category, they have less motivation to find an EB2 offer because what difference does it make? I'll get a green card immediately in EB3, so they hang out in EB3.
Simpler application.
Yeah.
For example, in 2021, again, that's a high filing year. The number of India EB2 is 35,000. The world was 57,000.
Yeah.
India alone was 35,000, and China was 8,000. So you do the math. What is the rest of the world? The rest of the world is about 20,000 cases only.
Yeah.
Or less than that.
I have a tendency to oversimplify, but the bottom line is, everywhere else is a drop in the bucket compared to India, because India is a country of 1 billion people.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. So hopefully that answers the question.
And that's just the fundamental problem in our system. It's the per country limit. Yeah.
My priority date is April 2013. Will I get any green card in fiscal year 23? Or this end of the road for me? Well, it is not the end of the road for you, Harsha. And with fiscal year I think you're gonna have to. I think you should get your green card before the end of this year, in my opinion.
And the fiscal year 2023. Yes. Everything again, backlog of 39,000. They have visas available to, we believe, to get through that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So basically, bottom line, guys, there's a lot of green cards to hand out. I think this beginning number of 2-year retrogression is a very strict interpretation of what the regulation says you should do, which is basically allocate.
It stinks, but we've seen, it's not like we haven't seen, EB2 go climb ahead a ton over the course of the fiscal year. That's what happened last fiscal year. They did it's exactly what they did. As the fiscal year went on last year, boom, 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 they moved EB2 leaps and bounds. Let's hope and pray.
You remember what, 2 years ago they moved 5 years, the filing dates for filing?
Yeah, the dates, exactly.
5 years.
For EB3,
Boom.
EB3,
And then they said, oh, sorry, please interfile to EB2. And now they said, oh, no, back 2 years. And then 6 months later, they're going to say, oh, I think we should move it 2 years forward. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. All right. So, Anoop, will they adjudicate remaining application first? What is the prediction for EB2 will move to next Visa Bulletin?
Yeah.
So, there's one piece is unknown. The government doesn't know it. We don't know it. Is what is the rest of the world filing for 2023? Mm-hmm. And the rest of the world filing for 2023 will dictate what's going to happen. However, the government has cleared the docket. So the rest of the world, the rest of the world should not be a very high number based on, by the way, if you look at 2022 filing, you're going to see the substantially lower I-140s than 2023, but perhaps 2023 was a high year, and perhaps that is gonna, but it's not gonna change things massively. So we think movement in the final action date should be mid-year. Movement in the dates for filing should be the first quarter.
Well, I address Anoop's question a little bit differently. Will they adjudicate remaining applications first? They have to, because those are the only applications they had. They retrogressed the dates, so they're not getting any other new applications. You eat what's on your plate before you ask for seconds.
Yes, they will adjudicate.
I like that metaphor, Sam. I'm very proud of myself for that one. Eat what's on your plate before you ask for seconds.
Okay, sounds good. I usually ask for seconds first. But no, that's a good metaphor, Brian. Let's go on to the next one here. Is there any accountability of the 150,000 out of the 281,000 green card that were allocated in fiscal year 2022?
Yeah, well, in this court filing, they gave some interesting numbers, and it's ones I had mentioned earlier. But they said they estimate that for EB2 India, 60,000 green cards going out in that category. EB3 India, 12,700, and there you go.
Yeah. Can USCIS not follow priority date and give green card randomly to the person whose priority date is last in queue is as per law? Well, obviously, Gaurav, your question is loaded, and the answer, can they do it? They shouldn't, but they did do it. People with further priority date were approved. People with retrogress priority date or older priority date did not get green cards. It's congratulations for those who got their green cards. But those who did not get their green cards in time, I'm sorry for our governments screwing up on this one. Because I have clients with 2011 priority date and 2012 priority date who are completely depressed.
This makes me, Sam, this just drives my brain back to the prior year, though. 60,000 wasted green cards in the last fiscal year. Man, I'd really like to see, everybody who's cheesed off they haven't got their green card this year, let's all go back to being cheesed off about what happened that last fiscal year. 60,000, that's the entire value of the spillover wasted last year. It's baloney.
Yes. Sandeep, green card approved for me and spouse last week.
I gave him a clap, but he's gonna get the button, push one. I'm gonna turn it off because it's probably annoying.
Thank you for your recommendation to go with medical interfiling in April. Well, you're more than welcome, Sandeep. It's congratulations for you and your family. And for those who haven't gotten their green card, hang in there. You will follow Sandeep's footsteps very soon. It was accepted and the case was approved without RFE, just on time before they ran out of visas. Wonderful. Great news. Happy for you, Sandeep. Brian.
So from Ravi Shamana, out of 280K visas last year, how many came to EB2 India? I did just cover that. 60,000 is their estimate. They say they've issued 57,000 so far. Their final estimate is about 60,000. And as they get closer to the end of the fiscal year, those numbers were as of September 6th. And you put your projection, Sam, it was more this year because we feel like they have eliminated a backlog, and the backlog, a significant portion of that must be people from other countries demanding visas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me when April 28, 2006 become current.
When it can be, we think it's possible during this fiscal year. Yeah.
We think mid-year that April 2015 will become current parole.
That's only a couple months past where it was, or it still is. Right now,
But you may see final action date, first quarter maybe getting there. But I think in terms of it being current for issuing green card.
Dates for filing will come first. If you see the dates for filing moving, that's a good sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Approved I-140 with Company A, priority date 2016. Company A refiled I-140 as changed location. Ooh, the new approved I-140 have a different priority date. October 2000, is this a mistake? Well, number one, the difference is...
That looks like a typo to me.
Yeah.
10/18/2016 versus 10/8/2016. It looks like a typo. If you put in a service request, that odds are they'll fix it.
Best question is your attorney. He probably knows, but it looks like a typo. Brian, you're right on the money here.
Okay, from Manish, looks like a multiple part one. I have a situation where my last EAD was going to expire in April 2022 and applied for H4 and EAD extension back in November 2021 at California Service Center based upon my spouse's H1B approval, valid until 2025, so H4 EAD extension. Had an unexpected situation on a personal front and had to travel to India in March 2022, wherein I got my visa stamped, valid valid until April 2025, which could pass approval. Great. Is there a part 3? It says part 202.
Good information. We do not know the question, Manish.
So
maybe here, right here.
Yeah, let's see. Is there a chance of EAD denial at this point as I-94 got updated in June 2022 and I had applied for an EAD back in November 2021? Is there anything we can do so we have a better chance of EAD approval?
Mouthful.
Yeah. So generally speaking, USCIS actually removed this policy statement from their website, but they said that there's travel during the pendency of an H-4 EAD just should not result in the denial of that EAD. That's that. I mean, do you believe they should deny an H-4 EAD for travel, Sam?
No, I don't believe
yeah,
so.
I'd say the worst is they could say, if they're doing their job right, they should issue, if they're really confused, they can issue an RFE saying, hey, what's the deal?
Yes. 7 o'clock, we'll take the last question. Gang, are ready? My interview was completed on August 9th, and my status still shows interview was completed, and my case must be reviewed. My part date is September 2011. Can I expect approval in October? I think you should expect approval anytime.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, no further, not during this month. I'd say expect approval anytime but the next couple of weeks, but as soon as October 1st hit, the new visa availability is there and your party date is still current because of that.
Yeah. With that, we conclude our show for today. Guys, come back next week and we will come up with a new topic to talk. Maybe there's updates.
Yeah. Keep on watching those USCIS FAQs. One of the frustrations for people is the government doesn't give out good information. Those FAQs on employment-based green cards it's been very nice of them to see them update that information, the progress they're making on getting those green cards out the door.
Yes. Thank you. Have a wonderful